So we're back playing as the Canadian forces in the area north of Carpiquet airfield. Despite running out of steam, Operation Epsom has achieved some of its key goals. So it hasn't captured Caen, but it has forced the Germans to commit significant resources to the defence of the eastern sector of the Normandy bridgehead. Now, in line with Allied tactics, which are to retain initiative by continued offensive action, we're conducting another operation, this time to the direct front of the city rather than on a flank. Operation CHARNWOOD was a major offensive launched by the British and Canadian forces that took place from July 8th to 9th, 1944, again as a part of the larger battle for Caen. We'll be playing two missions which cover the first day of the operation. So they're looking at fighting in the area of Buron, firstly during the assault, and then a defensive action during a German counterattack. I'll be using the mission straight from the Commonwealth expansion because I kind of need a break from the huge battalion level missions. But I did want to call out there's an amazing looking scenario which someone's made, and they've really gone into amazing detail. So there's a fantastic looking map covering the entire town. They've included lots of useful files to actually give context to the day. And there's a recommended list of modifications that can make the scenario run perfectly visually. So maybe one to revisit, but I needed a company size operation. So I'll go quickly through the actual briefing that we provided for the mission, and then we'll have a look at the map in terms of what we're going to do and put together a basic plan. So the situation is 9:30, 8th of July 1944, north of Buron. 9th Brigade 3rd Canadian Division is participating in Operation CHARNWOOD. As part of the opening stages, the Highland Light Infantry of Canada is tasked with seizing the town of Buron to the northwest of Caen. Earlier in the day, A Company of the HLIC encountered a German anti-tank ditch north of the town. The German defenders were decisively defeated, and the anti-tank ditch could not separate the HLIC from the supporting tanks, one troop of A Squadron from the Fort Garry Horse. Now the battalion is arrayed to assault the town. B Company is attacking the western half of the town, whilst A Company is assigned to hit the right half. C and D companies are held in battalion reserve. So mission, we're A Company. A Company Highland Light Infantry of Canada is to seize the eastern half of Buron no later than 10:30 in order to allow the rest of the division's attacks to proceed on schedule. Friendly forces, so we have A Company. In addition, we're reinforced with a machine gun platoon. We have the battalion's mortars, the pioneer platoon from the battalion, and a troop of Shermans. So 375 Shermans and a Firefly. Enemy forces, the enemy defending unit thus far have been from the 12th SS Panzer Division, the Hitlerjuden. They've been hit pretty badly, beaten up over the course of the fighting thus far, but they are tough and tenacious fighters that will cause us some serious problems. They have access to some of the best equipment the German military can offer. So we're playing as A Company, Highland Light Infantry of Canada, and this includes the full complement of 1, 2 and 3 platoons. We're supported on our left by a troop of Shermans, and in terms of additional assets, we've got a platoon of machine guns, a platoon of pioneers, a forward observer to call in artillery support, and from the battalion's mortar platoon we have an officer who can act as a mortar fire controller. For assets that we have off-map, we've got 2 3-inch mortar sections from the battalion's reserve, and a troop of 25-pounders, so this is 4 25-pound field guns. Now in terms of how we're going to break up this operation, you can sort of characterise it as 2 parts. Firstly, it's the actual break-in, so that's getting to the town, and then the operation to clear the town itself. Straight off the bat, we're going to have the 25-pounders putting in a sort of barrage across the front end of the town. This is a light mission, and it's basically there to harass the enemy whilst we move the machine guns forward, the tanks forward, and then start pushing 2 platoon into the wood block on our left hand. At the same time, 1 and 3 platoons are going to start shaking out behind the ridgeline, and then we're going to detach a section from the pioneer platoon to each of those platoons to support them. I'm going to have the forward observer move over to the right into a position where he can shift fire, and similarly I'm going to have the mortar fire controller push up to the ridgeline. Once we've got the machine gun platoon and the tanks set up on the ridgeline to support, we're going to have 1 platoon and 3 platoon push into the dip. I'm hoping those 2 platoons can catch their breath slightly once they're in that cover, and then the real moment of truth happens when I drop an absolute barrage of mortars shifting the 25 pounders onto the centre of town. Concurrent to this, I want the 2 platoons to start dropping smoke to their front, and then they need to rush forward as fast as possible to take advantage of that barrage. Now, I actually played this mission twice using the same plan both times, but got slightly different results that I think catch an interesting problem that I'd read about in a few books. Both battles ended in a victory, but the second try suffered far less during the break-in and consequently went into the clearance in better order. When I've been reading about lessons Commonwealth forces picked up through the fighting in Normandy, one thing that pops up regarding barrages and attacks is the importance of keeping forces uncomfortably close to the barrage. On the first playthrough, I cautiously gave a single minute before stepping off that allowed the Germans to recover and machine gun my men in the attack. The second playthrough rushed right up into the barrage far more successfully, but some of my men suffered non-incapacitating wounds. So the opening of the battle goes reasonably to plan. The machine guns and tanks managed to get into positions on the brow of the hill to support movement, and our left-hand platoon makes it to the woods. The assaulting platoons then make it to the dip to the front of the town under a massive amount of covering fire, but our right-hand platoon does suffer some casualties in the process. The artillery observer finds a good position and begins to shift fire to the main drag, and I move the tanks more centrally so they're in position to support the assault, then move into the town itself as close support. We then get a moment of calm with all fire other than smoke ceasing, and then the stonk of mortars smashes the forward edge of town. The men of 1 and 3 platoons rush forward, and confused close-in fighting begins at the hedgerow. We've made it to the town, and we now need to begin its clearance. Part of the reason I chose the frontal route was to play to what I thought would be truthful for the situation described. We have a neighbouring company operating to our right, and as much as I thought the east to west approach might be safer, with less firing points and windows, I felt it would be dangerous to be firing across the neighbouring company's axis of attack. The other reason was to base the clearance around a manual which I found on the Battle Order website. Now I imagine many combat mission players are already familiar with the Battle Order YouTube channel and website, and how it can be used as a fantastic resource for understanding how and why militaries are organised or equipped the way they are. And the document I used in particular was the battle drill for section and platoon tactics. Now the pamphlet actually has a section that is focused on a platoon clearance of a village, and the drill details how to use the Commonwealth TONE and assigns a fire section to cover the main street, sections for clearing houses, an ambush party to act as a cut-off group, and gives directions to the platoon headquarters. But the main reason I chose it is this diagram, which looks an awful lot like our main street. We can copy the main concepts with clearing and covering groups broken out of either platoon, and use the general drills such as shooting through doors, ceilings and walls, sensible use of grenades, and the potential use of the PAT for the blast effect. I could attempt to create a cut-off group as well, but I've been steadily moving forward the reserve platoon from its woodblock position to fulfill this role. The fire section dedicated to the main road killing ground will also be switched out for a tank. On the main road into town, the right-hand platoon finds a tank destroyer pointing down the street. This is buttoned up under the 25-pounder barrage, but it needs to be tackled, so I take a risk and have the Firefly creep to a hull-down position looking into the town. Being so close to the brow of the hill, it takes a few shots to get on target, which is another thing I've read about regarding tank crews not having a great deal of practice on the new Sabo rounds, but eventually it finds its mark. We then move into violent close-quarter street fighting, and I start to learn about the need for thoroughness in the clearance. So in a few cases I make very silly missteps that result in men being lost, either to flanking fire from positions I've missed, or to SS men hold up in buildings. The tanks do act as an equaliser, however, and with them moving onto the road in the place of the fire section role, the support takes up the weight of fighting, digging out enemy positions. Then with the infantry opposition dwindling, and having heard another armoured vehicle sound contact, the Firefly flanks through the streets, creeping forward to knock out a second tank destroyer. This gives us a Canadian total victory, but we're only halfway through the day, and next have to play through an SS counterattack. In the second playthrough, I finished with a healthy 80% of my fighting forces, but the original playthrough and real life resulted in severe casualties, with about a third of my men being killed or wounded. So the next video is going to pick up with the actual defence of East Buron.